Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Ooh. Joining me as ever is Patrick Van Jimrat Stratton.
Ooh,
ever fancied seeing him do a barbell curl? Get on his Instagram.
Your mum
and
follows me.
Last but not least, it's JT, the worst version, the worst JT out there.
Hi guys. Better than John
Strong
Terry,
word.
so
and
shut your mouth.
kicking off this European themed show, we start with a question based in the British Isles. Controversial.
Wow.
It is. Is this the most open title race in Premier League history? Joseph, I'm coming to you first.
Yeah.
Let's go through the top six one by one.
Okay.
Start me off on Manchester City.
I think they've actually had, well, I said this on Carling's show last week, that I think they've had the best window so far of any of the top six teams. Obviously not in terms of money spent, because they've spent big on some dodgy positions, 54 million on Kyle Walker being an obvious one. But those positions that they've spent money on, they had to sign players.
Yeah.
They let all of their fullbacks go, meaning that clubs could run them up in the transfer market. Kyle Walker is an exceptional buy. They just paid too much for him. Benjamin Mendy is another exceptional buy. Danilo, really good backup as well. You even look at going forward, Bernardo Silva, what a purchase that looks to be, especially with some of the other players that are moving around in Europe's forward positions right now, and he's gone for what, 40 odd million euros. That could look like an absolute snip in a couple of years. I think Man City have had an exceptional window. I still think, though, they need that central midfielder.
Yeah.
I think they're a central midfielder away from not guaranteeing the title, but being far and away favourites, because I think their midfield is still slightly light, despite the fact they've got Yaya, Fernandinho. I believe Fernando is actually still on their books, hasn't gone yet.
They're selling him to Galatasaray.
Yeah, so Gundogan's obviously injured, Yaya's not getting any younger, and Fernandinho, how long are those legs going to last for? I think maybe one more central midfielder and they're title favourites.
Yeah, well, Pep has said he wants a centre-back and a central midfielder, right? And I think that is because he can't necessarily rely upon Gundogan and company to stay fit all season. But if they can, what a team that is. Great spine running all the way through it. Patrick, our resident Gooners specialist, why don't you fill me in on Arsenal and their credentials?
Arsenal have bought a striker this summer, which they needed to. They bought Alexandre Lacazette. They probably bought him 2 years too late, but they bought him, and that's good. They also got in Kolasinac.
Great move, that.
On a free, and he can fill in at left wing back and left centre back. That's great.
A host of top clubs wanted him as well, didn't they?
Yeah, well, Kolasinac is a really good move. However, as usual, Arsenal are a midfielder short. Every season we say it, they're a midfielder short. This summer, they've got Jack Wilshere and El Neni and people like that, but they're not good enough. We know that now. And the thing is about Arsenal, they seem to be absolutely determined to keep Alexis Sanchez. But what that says to me is we're willing to lose him for free next summer because we just want to gamble everything on getting back into the top four this season. But if you're gambling everything on it, go and buy that midfielder that you need. Go and buy possibly a centre-back who you may need. You know, you might need to do those things. And if you're concerned about those positions, you have to deal with them this season, because this is the season that you spend big. There's no point waiting till next year and then saying, oh, well, it turned out we actually could have done with an extra midfielder.
More pertinently, you can control where he goes at this point as well, right? If he goes to Manchester City next season, that is a double whammy.
Yeah, especially if you lose Ozil, which Wenger seems pretty much set that's going to happen. Right?
I'm not as bothered about losing Sanchez next summer, purely because I think he turns 30 next year, and I think that at this point, getting him on a huge contract at the age of 28, Arsenal aren't a club like Man United where they can just eat those wages until he's kind of 32, 33. But yeah, I don't know. Arsenal, as always, they're a midfielder short. They need to get one. I don't know if they will. We're linked to Jean-Michel Seri from Nice, of course, still linked with Thomas Lemar. If those two moves go through, then Arsenal are in a pretty good position. But basically, they're dealing with the fact that all the good Premier League teams have stayed good, and Arsenal don't need to stay good. They need to actually make up ground, and I'm not sure those purchases do it.
Where would Thomas Lemar play? Because he plays out wide for Monaco, and Wenger seems insistent on transforming him into a more central player unless you convert to a 4-2-3-1, which he's played at Arsenal previously, and him and Alexis operate on both wings, right?
I think we'll alternate between the 3-4-3 and 4-2-3-1 this season, so I think he'll get plenty of minutes. But there's also a rumour that Arsene would like to play him in that midfield too, alongside Xhaka. He does do a decent amount of defensive work. Of course, he's a very good dribbler and passer as well. So there's a theory he could be a long-term replacement to Santi Cazorla there. That's a lot to ask of a 21-year-old in a new league.
Yeah, especially adapting to a new position as well in the new league. And let's not forget as well the fact that Arsenal, everybody seems to have forgotten the fact they've got to play Europa League football this year. That is such a killer. even from Man United's experience in it last year, winning the competition was so hard. We had to completely sacrifice the top 4 push to win that Europa League. And those Thursday night games kill your squad. If you don't have a deep squad, Man United actually have a fairly deep squad as well, let's not forget. You look at some of the injuries we picked up last season. Towards the back end, we had 2 major ACL blowouts in Rojo and Zlatan. So Arsenal's squad at the moment to compete in the Europa League and the Premier League is not deep enough.
Why don't we move on to United then? I mean, like, what do you guys think their prospects actually are? I mean, obviously you're a United fan, as such. You tend to believe that United will win everything, regardless of logical reason.
I actually don't think United are ready for...
Not what he says off camera.
I don't think United are ready to win the title just yet. I think they have really improved the squad again, though. Last summer, I thought we had a good summer. We signed some really, really key area positions that we needed. And I think we've done the same this year. We needed a striker. We got Romelu Lukaku. We needed a defensive midfielder to replace Carrick. We bought in Matic. These are areas that we had to replace. Similarly to last year, we needed a winger. We bought in Mkhitaryan. What we're basically big time reliant on this season is Martial or Rashford really stepping up their game. One of those two,
especially if you're going to play that 4-3-3. That looks scary if everyone's on form. That Matic, Herrera, Pogba midfield dovetails really nicely. Well, with one another. But as you say, big pressure on the men out wide.
Yeah, I mean, Mkhitaryan, Lukaku and Martial is as frightening a counter-attacking prospect as you'll see in the Premier League. It really is, especially with Paul Pogba spraying those long balls out wide. What my one concern is the output from Martial, Rashford, Jesse Lingard. Is it at that title-winning level yet? I'm not entirely convinced. I think Mkhitaryan will have a big season this year for Manchester United. He's looked fabulous in pre-season. I think Lukaku, he's going to score goals, right? We know Lukaku's a goal scorer. It's what that left wing position offers for Manchester United that's going to really define our season. I don't think we're quite ready for a title challenge yet, but we'll be pretty close, I think. We'll be pretty close.
Well, on the subject of title winners and Nemanja Matic, let's move on to Chelsea, who have had a mediocre summer, to say the very least. They're not going to have the luxury of no European football next season. Bakayoko is apparently out till October with an injury, their key signing this summer. They've signed Rudiger as well, but let the likes of Nathan Ake go. They've pursued people like Oxlade-Chamberlain. People don't know if Conte is going to stick with that 3-4-3. Morata, arguably, it's their second choice signing in terms of a striker to Lukaku. How do you think they're going to fare, Pato?
This is the one I really wanted to talk about, because this is an absolute disaster zone. I mean, Chelsea have taken a title-winning squad and have just ripped it apart, but not in the way that City have ripped theirs apart. I cannot make head or tail of what they're doing. So they let Ake go, and then they brought in Rudiger, and I think Ake is probably at least as good as Rudiger. They brought back Christensen, that's a good move. But they haven't signed any new wing-backs, who they definitely need, at least as backups. And they've just got no midfield depth. Their midfield choices are now Bakayoko, Kante and Fabregas.
And Bakayoko's injured.
And maybe David Luiz. Do they have to push him in there? At which point they're thin at centre-back. They've got no depth anywhere. And they need, not only do they need extra bodies this season, but they need Champions League level bodies. I don't know where they find them.
Well, last week, Nainggolan signed a contract extension with Roma, and Conte was reportedly keen to go in big for him. So as you say, they are fast running out of talent in Europe to snap up, aren't they?
Well, I think it's not just that. They've missed out on some really key targets. Alex Sandro was definitely in Antonio Conte's sights. He was really keen on signing them. Bonucci joined Milan. Juventus said they're not going to sell any more defenders. That move halted. So then he went after Danilo, didn't he? He went after Danilo quite heavy. Danilo joined Man City. So now where does that leave his wing-backs? I have to say, if Marcos Alonso or Victor Moses pick up an injury, the cover for them is seriously suspect. Does Azpilicueta shift out to a right wing back and then you ask Rudy to fill a job there? I'm not entirely convinced about that. Bakayoko out, like we said, until October. However, they have accidentally, we said off camera, they've kind of stumbled across, accidentally created one of the deepest and most talented strike forces in Europe. Morata, Batshuayi and Diego Costa are all at the club at this current stage.
And Tammy Abraham's out on loan.
And you have to say that Costa's probably going to leave most likely for Milan, but even Morata and Batshuayi is a really exciting front two. In pre-season, they played together. They haven't looked particularly brilliant. They haven't gelled yet, but if they do, that's exciting.
Kennedy as well, they've still got him.
I think we're all of the opinion that Batshuayi has been
underused,
played like a fiddle a little bit at Chelsea so far. During his stint there. But yeah, there's definitely more to come from him. Let's move on to Tottenham now, guys. probably, have the strongest starting 11 in the Premier League. Arguably now Trippier's at right back. They probably need to address that situation. They've had a very quiet summer. We've discussed this on Sunday Vibes, on Continental Club prior. We all said who we think Spurs should sign. Just to reiterate, I was Julian Brandt from Bayer Leverkusen, just to support Christian Eriksen in that creative role. I'm not sure you guys said.
Yannick
I often forget what you guys say.
Yeah, we both said for Carrasco,
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's been zero movement in terms of their pursuit on anyone, really, has there?
Literally anyone. They have not signed
I'm struggling for a talking point when it comes to Tottenham.
But I think Tottenham, Pochettino, I think he knows he's not going to win a Champions League, so he's pretty much writing off Europe. I genuinely think he's writing off Europe again. Last season they were pathetic in it. They didn't do anywhere near the type of stuff they should have done in Europe.
Let's not discuss Wembley because that is so boring.
But the Premier League this year, I think he's in real danger of going back a long way. Even title-winning squads must be improved upon. We've seen it a number of times. Title-winning squads, people don't sign the players they need to and they drop down a considerable amount of places. This is a team that finished 10 points behind the title last season and they're still not improved their team. It's a long, long way off a title-winning side, that side, when you're selling the likes of Kyle Walker. If Harry Kane or Dele Alli get a serious injury, or God forbid Christian Eriksen gets injured, because if Eriksen gets injured, they're in a whole heap of I just don't know what Pochettino's game plan is. Whether he's trusting the youth or not, he needs to have better backups than he's got right now.
The thing that he does do, though, is solve problems season to season. So not last season, but the season before, we said, my God, what happens to this Spurs team if Moussa Dembele gets injured? Last year, they brought in Victor Wanyama, who I think is okay, but he was used in such a way that they actually missed Dembele for large chunks of the season. They were totally fine because Wanyama was really good in that role. This year, maybe he can solve that sort of problem again. So if Eriksen gets injured, he says, well, you know what, we can actually move our pieces around in such a way that we can get something out of them, especially if Lamela eventually comes back from injury, who knows. The thing they definitely need to do, like you both said, is kind of pick up a right back. And they've got a hole on the right wing and a hole at right back. And so you thought that somebody like a Benjamin Henrichs or a Ricardo Pereira will turn up who can play both those roles. And the thing about Spurs is, while they do make some transfer mistakes, they've normally got at least one sensible move up their sleeve. Daniel Levy's really good at his job. And so you'd have thought that before the end of the summer, somebody will come in who'll see significant minutes and Spurs will once again be very good. But whether they're title-winning good, I kind of agree with Joe. I don't know if they've got it.
Yeah. Well, especially with a bench that consists of Ben Davies, Harry Winks and the likes. They've got a great backup striker in Son, haven't they?
Yeah.
As you say, I mean, which right back could you feasibly go for in this current market, which isn't a significant improvement on Kieran Trippier?
Why don't they take Man United on at Serge Aurier?
Apparently available 30 million. And Pereira's got a buyout of 25 mil, and I think he's 10 times the player Trippier is. But I don't think Trippier's very good. So
Pochettino likes his fullbacks to almost be in line with his midfield, doesn't he?
Yeah. They've
got to be really high at the pitch, so you probably need to go like for like with Kyle Walker. So Serge Aurier might not be a bad shout. He's very athletic. Or Cazorla, can he play right back? He plays left back for PSG, doesn't he?
I'm not too sure.
Not sure if he can switch flank, but maybe up front Spurs should just throw all their money at Forsberg of RB Leipzig.
That would be class.
Who knows? But I digress. Let's move on to our final candidates. It is Liverpool, who have looked immense pre-season at the very least, beating Bayern Munich recently in the Allianz Arena 3-0. Of course, they've signed Mo Salah, who we're all big fans of from Roma, for 40 million euros, which a lot of people thought was a lot of money, too much money even at the start of the season. And now, after seeing some of the other movers and shakers, it looks like a very savvy piece of business, especially considering his output at Roma last season. They've signed Solanke as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think they're going to get an awful lot out of him in the year to come.
Especially at 3 mil.
And if Sturridge can't stay fit and Origi continues to only show glimpses of promise, then he will get minutes.
Yep.
But Pato, in their current situation, let's maybe ignore the Coutinho out and the Naby Keita in scenario. How do you rate their chances?
I don't really think they've got a shot at the title as they currently are. I think they'll probably get top 4 because I still think they're better than Arsenal. The squad's really thin. The squad's really thin, and multiple competitions do just wear your squad down over the course of the season. That front four is amazing, but can they play every game in the Premier League and the Champions League? And if they get on in the cups, who knows? I also don't really care for Andrew Robertson as a left-back signing. I don't see what Liverpool have seen in him.
Not a bad squad player.
Yeah, but this is the thing, they don't need a squad player at left back, they need a starting quality left back.
They have Joe Gomez as well, don't they? So
he's gone out on loan, has he not, Joe Gomez?
Okay.
Well, they've also got Alberto Moreno, but these are guys who who arrived and they've said you're not good enough at the moment. So I think they could have probably done a little bit better than that. I still think they'll go and buy a centre back, but yeah, basically at the moment that midfield is just not good enough. They need to upgrade their Emre Can position. Even though he's an excellent player, they need somebody better than that if they want to challenge now.
How much do you think it'd take to prize Kovacic away from Real Madrid if you were Liverpool and you didn't want to spend 80 million on Naby Keita?
I think anyone who's got 50 to 60 mil should probably offer it to Real Madrid for Kovacic, because as much as they say they're not going to leave, and every time I mention this, I get people tweeting at me and saying Real Madrid have said he's not going to leave, he's not going to leave. Then you think, well, if you give them 60 mil for one of their backups, you will see that they'll let somebody go. So like Morata, they didn't want to let Morata go, but somebody comes in with 60 mil and they say, we can't sit this guy on the bench and not take the 60 mil. So I don't know. I think if you can get him for, basically I think if you can get him for under 80 and you're Liverpool, you probably do, because he pretty much fixes your midfield.
Wow. Agreed. But who do you think Liverpool should sign? And what do you think of our top 6 analysis? Let us know in the comments below. So after that big Premier League preview and talking Neymar to death on transfer winners and losers, transfer talk, we're going to wrap up today's show on Diego Costa and his potential move to AC Milan. I've heard, Joseph, it might be a 6-month loan.
Yeah, well, the rumour is it's going to be a 6-month loan deal and then he'll join Atletico Madrid. So rather than just sitting on Atletico Madrid's bench for 6 months, Conte just basically wants him out of the club, getting away from Stamford Bridge. And AC Milan, obviously, they're doing bits in the transfer market this summer. And they want another striker, don't they? It's been widely reported they're chasing Belotti. They were chasing Aubameyang for a while. And Diego Costa on a 6-month loan deal is one hell of a signing. I think people have forgotten how good Costa is. He is a legit 20-goal-a-season striker in the Premier League. He's a multiple title winner in the Premier League. He's a flat-track bully at times. He's mobile. He's good in the air, good with both feet. I think that he would potentially be one of the best strikers in the entire division. So for AC Milan to pick him up just on a 6-month loan deal, the stuff that Gomez is going to learn up front alongside him, who they bought in this summer, didn't they, from Porto, I believe, is going to be incredible. I think he is a brilliant signing for 6 months, although my one question is, what is the problem with Aubameyang? Why is nobody paying 70 million euros for him? Because he scores goals consistently, and he's done it in a big league, so why is he not getting a move?
Well, I think Dortmund are just extremely reluctant. If they let Aubameyang go, they might be relinquishing that 2nd or 3rd place finish because...
But they've come out openly a few times and said we're willing to deal on him. You just need to get it done in the next few days.
And maybe it's because he's a striker who relies heavily on his pace and he's approaching 28, 29 and they want, what, 70 million euros for him? We know that China were interested, perhaps not now. Now 10 of their clubs have had to take loans out from the government or whatever to stay afloat next season. But the interesting thing for me is, where does he fit into that system, and would it be destructive for Andre Silva if Montella altered that 4-3-3 system to shoehorn Diego Costa in? They've got a very talented midfield. They're apparently adding youngster
Sanchez
from Bayern Munich. They want to add him to their ranks. They've been told no, unless you give us 10 million for one season with no buyback clause. So maybe he isn't on his way there. But with the likes of Andre Silva, Bonaventura, Suso, Locatelli, Frank Kessie, you'd imagine that front 6 is already chock-a-block as it is, Pato. So to play devil's advocate, how do you fit him into that team?
I think it's not really a problem if you drop out, you know, Suso or Locatelli or Bonaventura for Diego Costa. I think you'd probably play a 2 up front with Andre Silva. We've seen he can interchange with Cristiano Ronaldo at international level, so it might actually help him. And like you said, you know, it's going to be no bad thing for these kids to see how a real superstar does it. So I think you probably do something like a 4-3-1-2, something like that. And you'd park the 2 up front together, maybe with Çalhanoğlu behind them. But Montella's a reasonably flexible coach. I think he'd be willing to figure out what goes on. The problem is, of course, that halfway through the season, he'd have to change system from one including Costa to one without him. And at that point, is that something you really want to do necessarily in January?
I think he went to the same Italian coaching school that Conte went to, where their philosophy is you don't have a system, you have players, and then you need to make a system that suits them. It's very
Yeah, because I think
the antithesis to Pep.
But that midfield three is seriously exciting. If they did bring in Renato Sanchez, and they could have a midfield three of Biglia, Kessié, Renato Sanchez, Çalhanoğlu sat in front, and then Diego Costa and Silva up front. That's a scary, scary team. I think, like you said, the biggest problem is after 6 months, whether or not after 6 months they go, F this, we're paying big for Belotti, and they bring in Belotti or not, remains to be seen. They've got more than enough money to go out and pay Belotti's buyout clause.
I've read a few interesting articles which suggest they've had to borrow money from very suspect places to...
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, it's
Chinese investors, aren't they?
To fuel this hectic summer. But anyway, that's beside the point. Maybe we'll touch upon that when we're a bit more well informed in another episode of Continental Club. Guys, do you think he should go to AC Milan alone? Should Chelsea keep him?
Yes.
Should he go to Atletico and, you know, just eat tapas for 6 months? Let us know in the comments below. So that was Continental Club, guys. As the season kicks on, we want your hot topics to discuss. Let us know on Twitter and on Instagram, and be sure to go and like Pato's pumping pics. Joe, what should they do now?
Yeah, come over to Football Daily. When did this go out? Friday. VFN's just gone out. And also, get your fantasy football teams entered into our league. All of the details are in the descriptions below. There's loads of prizes we're giving away. It's going to be a good time.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Don't have to.
A lovely pair of pythons, mate.
There you go.
Right. Oh, you have been working
treat
out,
for you
yeah.
there.
Little
Show them to
They
your
work
mum.
quite hard, aren't they?
That's what I'm going to say.